Well, looking at the salvage operation here of the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse, so I want to show you some better quality video of them moving that large section of the bridge truss a couple of days ago. What I showed you before was on the Stream Time live cam, which of course is highly pixelated because of the distance. But check out some of this video here, and here's a much better close-up shot here of the Chesapeake 1000 crane hauling away this 450-ton section of the bridge. And this really is amazing to see. And on our video that we uploaded a couple of days ago, there was a lot of discussion about the weight and the tonnage of how much that weighed, we were guessing. And so it turns out they announced from the Unified Command that the total weight was probably about 450 tons, which is good. This is about half of the limit. The Chesapeake 1000 crane here is capable of lifting about 1,000 tons. But, you know, like I always say in engineering, you never want to push those limits and test them. You always want to stay sufficiently away from those boundaries. You know, limits are something you should run away from, not run toward. Now, these salvages have been going at it like crazy the entire weekend. So even though the big cranes are pulling up the big trusses, you got all these little scoopers pulling up the small debris from the bottom of the river. And here's a better view of how the moving of this large truss piece fits into the overall landscape view of what's going on there. And then once the large cranes carry the Francis Scott Key Bridge trusses over to Sparrows Point, they set them down on the 10-acre site that they've got there. And then you can see their large hydraulic metal shear tool is going at it. This thing has some massive grappling powers, as well as it just shears right through the metal trusses. And in this case, they're using it to just push down the piece, get it down closer to the ground so that the guys on the ground can cut through it, or they can just munch through it. And then as we can see here, bright and early, 9 a.m. this morning, the Weeks crane was back at it again, removing more of those containers off of the Dali ship. I don't know how many they got off today, but I do know they announced last week that their goal is to remove at least about 175 of the containers off the Dali ship. And that Weeks 533 crane has been very busy over the last week. And this shows you here just how dangerous everything is on top of the Dali ship. So here's all of these guys hanging out. They've got a scaffolding that they've built to go over this tall hunk of concrete here. This is probably the top of the 4 pillars where they all come together here and meet at this point. But it just goes to show you the magnitude of how mangled everything is. And look at these containers here, precariously perched and crushed. And this is the job I want right there, this dude. Right there. Yeah, he definitely has to be harnessed in, because, man, if this thing topples over, he's gonzo. That's why some of these initial containers are going to be very slow moving, removing them off the Dali ship. And even then, when they are moving the containers, they have to go fairly slow, because you don't want these things to start swaying on you. That always works against you when you're a crane operator. You like things to be known and calculating, and you want it to be low and slow, just like cooking a fine barbecue. And when you go to set it down, you want to set it down slow and easy. These are the times when you're setting down a load where there's danger of a crane collapsing. Now, of course, this is a very powerful crane, so they're probably not too concerned about that. So they must really have to tread with caution here on that Dali ship. So at the rate that they're removing these containers, I would figure it probably won't be until maybe the 21st of April before they get enough containers off of the Dali ship that they can now start to work on removing the large bridge trusses that are pushing down on the bow and lifting up the back end of the stern of this Dali ship. And man, do they love it when it's a nice crystal clear blue sky day out with no wind. Now we have some crew members here on top of the containers on the Dali ship. And this pole that they're using right here is most likely to reach down here and to unlatch all of these container latches. So this is how they keep the different stacks together. So really, who's the guy behind the curtain here? Who's in charge of this whole operation? Well, a lot of you have asked that, and some of you might be unaware that it's actually under the control of what we call the Unified Command, which was established shortly after the collapse.
I'm attached to a multi-jurisdictional federal task force.
If there is a federal task force, I want to know about it!
So the Unified Command includes the U.S. Coast Guard, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the Maryland Department of the Environment, the Maryland Transportation Authority, the Maryland State Police, and Whit O'Brien's representing Synergy Marine, who manages the Dali ship. That's that container ship that crashed into the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Now, not shown on here is Chick-fil-A. Hey, I'm just seeing if you're paying attention here. No, actually, Chick-fil-A is not part of the Unified Command. It's In-N-Out Burger. No, but seriously, Chick-fil-A could very well be part of this, and I think they should be, because I don't know if you folks are aware of this, but many times in the past, Chick-fil-A has been known to show up whenever there's catastrophes and give out a lot of food and stuff. And in fact, in Houston, I believe it was, when they had these floods, Chick-fil-A showed up on motorized vessels here to deliver food and help rescue people as well. Now, Chick-fil-A, if you're listening out there, you've got a bunch of guys and gals up there that are risking life and limb going under the water and cutting the bridge trusses and everything like that. And I'm sure they're hungry, man. You could bring them some food. Who doesn't love food? And then just this afternoon at about 3 o'clock or so, this was only just a couple of hours ago. This is not a repeat of what you're seeing. This was live this afternoon. The Chesapeake 1000 crane picked up another large, huge section of the Francis Scott Key Bridge truss that was recovered right from the very area. This is the remaining section from what they pulled up the other day. And so I believe this was the section where the construction vehicles were when the bridge collapsed. And as the largest crane in the Northeast carts away this section of the collapsed bridge truss, you can see I've sped it up for you to see what all they had to do to maneuver it out of there. Notice the back of the barge appears to be weighed down a bit, possibly counterweights, to help counter the weight of the bridge truss and can't topple over. And here is that last section that they brought over today, just resting comfortably over on Sparrows Point, where tomorrow the machine that I showed you earlier will be attacking it and crushing it down and cutting it down so that they can cut it into even smaller pieces and it will be transported away. Now, the Unified Command, of course, has given us many more photos here over the last couple of days to update us and bring us up to speed into their non-stop process of salvaging and grappling and scooping up stuff from the bottom and bringing up bridge trusses. So they are making real good strides on clearing up this channel. The Unified Command also released to us this afternoon this graphic here, which is the latest update to their salvage operations plan. And it was meant to give us a better visual scale to help understand the efforts that they're going through right now to open up that limited access channel. And it also shows on there, however, just about everything is in progress so far except for E, where the red dot is E. That's not begun yet because that's their refloat the Dali. That will happen once all of the wreckage is removed off of the Dali. Now, one other thing too is if you're new here to the channel, make sure you check out this other video here that I put up the other night showing additional sonar photographs that the Navy provided of the Francis Scott Key Bridge underwater, showing everything that's going on down there. You'll love those. And then make sure you check out this video over here that I did on the FIU bridge collapse a few months ago here in Miami. So anyway, thank you so much for joining us tonight, folks, and we'll see all of you on the next one.